So I'm happy to have you, Ambassador Abderahman Salaheldin, diplomat, counselor to the Egyptian foreign minister, and a dear friend, if I may, a dear friend. So let's start by discussing it, and maybe you can highlight how reality is perceived from from the Nile. When you sit on the Nile and looking on the region, the big picture of the region about the challenges and opportunities that we're facing now.
Well, I think the picture from the Nile is not very actually optimistic. It's in the last 2 years, we have been only following stories of horrible war that inflicted casualties, civilian casualties. First, initially on the Israeli civilians, 1,200 of them were gone at the Hamas terrorist attack against the civilian population on October 7th. And the following 2 years, we have only been following a systemic genocide waged on the part of the Israeli government against the Palestinian population. And all measures of genocide were used, not only killing, but pushing people to leave their land, and also collective punishing them, denying them food, water, medicine, and blocking all kind of assistance to them, and not discriminating between women, children, even humanitarian assistance people, journalists. It's unfortunate. And to me personally, not to all Egyptians, but to me, because I have been a close supporter of the peace between Egypt and Israel in the last 40 years, to my surprise, I didn't find any rejection to this genocide among the Israeli population. Yes, we saw demonstrations against the war. We saw demonstrations in Tel Aviv and in other parts of Israel trying to stop the war, but in order to get the hostages back. I would have expected to see the pro-peace movement and people of good humanitarian purposes to also try to stop the war in order to stop killing innocent civilians. This is very important. This is very important, and I was missing that. Regardless, this is, of course, very subjective reflection on my own. This is not a political analysis. But when we talk about political analysis, I look back and I don't see that today we are in a better situation than the situation we were 2 years ago. Yes, I know, I recognize that Israel was able to strike effectively and heavily against 3 of its enemies, Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Yes, that happened. But actually, all the 3 of them are still there. And they can rebuild, and they can reconstitute another threat in, say, 5 to 10 years' time. And then we would go again into this vicious cycle of violence that has been happening every 5 to 10 years, if you look back into recent history, except for the existing peace between Israel and Egypt, and Israel and Jordan. Israel is not safer today than it was 2 years ago. And with the advance of technology, with all these kind of drones and artificial intelligence and you name it, the threat even is going to be higher and higher if we don't resolve this conflict, this Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The 7 million Palestinians are not going anywhere. They will remain in historic Palestine, exactly like the 7 million Jews who are in historic Palestine. They're not going anywhere. And they need somehow to coexist. If they do not coexist in 2 political entities, 2 states, then we will be faced with only a one-state solution, and we will be faced with the situation where South Africa found itself back in 1980s. And we know that this led to a one state, one government, and no discrimination. And well, it is up to the 2 people, actually. As an Egyptian, I have no say there. But I don't see any alternative. So I would like to continue to work for peace between 2 people, 2 national aspirations, and 2 states in the future. But if I am defeated, not I personally, but all of the people who think the same way I think, if we were defeated by extremists, both the Israeli rights and the Palestinian right, and the terrorists on both sides, well, we will have no way to go but a one-state solution, and no way to go but to call things what they are. What we are witnessing today is another kind of apartheid, and it needs to end. And it is up to the Israeli people and its majority to decide how it's going to end.
But the Israeli people and the Palestinians are not living alone. They are in the historical Palestine, but it seems that they need help from their neighbors. We struggle for years to try, some of us, to try to end the conflict and find a resolution. Some of us have been struggled to manage the conflict. This is not our camp. But even if we want to solve the conflict today, under these circumstances, we need help. And here, we need help primarily from our neighbors. And here, Egypt plays a major role as well. So and as you may know, the relationship between Israel and Egypt has been has been put on the spot in the last 2 years. Different actors wanted to push it to different directions. Some deliberately wanted to hinder the relations, and obviously the war itself challenged immensely the relationship between Israel and Egypt. But Egypt remained maybe Israel's main friends here in the area. And I wonder what role you perceive Egypt can play to promote or to proceed from the point we are now into a political, diplomatical, comprehensive process of peace between Israelis and the Palestinians.
You are exactly right. Egypt's role is very key to promoting peace between Israel and its other neighbors. And the first aspect of the Egyptian role in this regard is actually providing an example. For 40 years, we have been telling our Arab brothers, all of them, not only the Palestinians, all of them, look to our example. It is through peace that we were able to get our land back. We got back Sinai in full through peace negotiations and through arbitration and through confidence building measures. We tell our brothers that this experience could be repeated and could be applicable in their case. We tell them that it doesn't need to happen overnight. It took us 40 years, 4 decades, for the Egyptian troops, for example, to be able to freely deploy in some parts of Sinai to fight terrorism with Israeli consent. I mean, I remember I was a young diplomat when we negotiated the clauses of the partial disarmament in Sinai. And I remember clearly that there were objections in some Egyptian circles to that. And Sadat was very visionary. He thought this is going to be resolved through confidence building measures. If peace is sustained, it was actually what happened. 40 years later, both Egypt and Israel agreed that Egyptian heavy armament, aeroplanes, fighters, and they should come back to Sinai to fight a common threat. Those terrorist jihadists who were based in Sinai and were threatening both the national security of Egypt and Israel. We are citing this experience in our dialogue with Arab brothers. And it was because of this example that we provided, the whole Arab position came around. They were originally boycotting Egypt when we concluded peace with Israel. You remember, 1979, we were under Arab boycott by the Arab League. We were the reason why the whole Arab position turned around from 79 to 2002 in producing the Arab initiative that would cite the principle of land for peace, the same principle that we applied in the Egyptian-Israeli case. If Israel would withdraw to its 1967 borders and give the Palestinians their national rights, it will not only be in peace with its immediate neighbors, but it will be fully integrated in the whole Middle East, in the whole Arab world, I mean. So this is number one, providing an example. And we found a problem here in applying our example because we are rebutted by our brothers and by others, and especially by the extremists, and saying, oh, well, maybe that was your case in Egypt. But no, look at what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank, trying to annex it. What they did with the Golan Heights, they already annexed it and fully integrated. And they're even going beyond that. And they're occupying other parts of Syria. Even in this war, they ended up occupying now half of Gaza. And the example that they cite is not really in favor of peace. They say, oh, no, they only withdraw because of the use of force. They only withdraw because they couldn't sustain high casualties, etc., in the southern Lebanon, in Gaza earlier, etc. So we would like to fight this argument and to use the present situation in Gaza to make it a model for what would happen next on other fronts, whether in the West Bank or even beyond that, in Syria, in Lebanon, etc. And the model here is based on mutual and reciprocal commitments on the part of the Palestinians in Gaza that they would give up on these weapons that were used in October 7 and earlier. One. And two, to commit not to rebuild other military capabilities, and to do that under a Palestinian administration that is agreed upon by all the Palestinian factions, and under international supervision that will be represented by this board of peace headed by President Trump and by an international stabilization force or international security force, ISF, that is composed of countries that are very supportive to the Palestinian national admirations. And this is the challenge for Israel as well, because on the part of Israel, we are expecting a commitment that if this process is proceeding successfully, that Israel would fully withdraw from Gaza, also allow the links between Gaza and the West Bank. And what we are all looking for, actually, is some kind of a roadmap, even though I don't like the word. It has a very bad reputation now. But anyhow, a roadmap that would show us how this transitional period of 2 years or so would lead us to resume negotiations on the establishment of a Palestinian state, resume final status negotiations, as we call it. So Egypt is willing to do its part in all what I just mentioned. We are, I think, planning to host by the end of this month a reconstruction conference for Gaza. And we are hopeful that there would be wide international, regional and international participation, commitments, and delivery on the commitments, because there were many commitments made before and were not delivered. But anyhow, this is one. Two, we are already participating in close consultation with the American administration and with other partners about the other two aspects, the Board of Peace activities, the establishment of a Palestinian technical administration, and also on the ISF, on the force that would supervise the transition of security situation in Gaza from Hamas to a Palestinian security force that is professional, apolitical, and a very supportive of peace. This is very important. This is very important that we should show the Palestinians where this is headed. Because if it is just another management of the conflict that, as you rightly said, that like what happened before, I'm afraid we will be competing against a very strong argument in favor of the extremists. Because extremists are trying to discredit us and saying, look, I mean, this is going nowhere. Israel will not give up on the land. Israel will not give up on the West Bank. Israel will not allow a Palestinian state. And unfortunately, those extremists are helped by many of the statements that are coming out of some Israeli officials, unfortunately.
Well, both the extremists on both societies are helping each other and strengthening each other, as you rightly said.
That's very true. The last way we Egyptians can help and participate in, actually, we are doing that right now, but I would like to see more happening there. It's actually how to turn Gaza into a real model of the fruits of peace. And this would not happen unless Israel would allow the supplies of not only humanitarian materials to go in, food, water, energy, and medicine, but also to plan the reconstruction of Gaza and to turn it. The only part I like about the vision, the real estate vision, is that turn it into
The Riviera.
a Riviera or Monte Carlo of the Middle East. I hope that's the case. But we have a long way ahead of us. And definitely this, as the Trump plan after modification said clearly, it's a Riviera or whatever it's going to be a Riviera for the Palestinians, not for anybody else. It is done for the Palestinians and not for anybody else. And there should be no illusion about that. And we are happy. I mean, Egyptians are very happy that ultimately the plan is recognizing this fact, which is very good. There are many misgivings among Egyptians, and here I'm talking about. I have no official capacity today, so I'm telling you also how the Egyptians, the average Egyptians, is seeing what's happening. Of course, we all were disappointed. For example, when early in the war, there was some effort to push Palestinians in Gaza toward Egypt, toward Sinai. And believe me, I think we have talked earlier about that. 2 years ago, very early on in the war, it could have been catastrophic to our peace together. It could have turned us into warring parties rather than peaceful one. This is one. Two, I personally, I am disappointed today that I'm hearing some Israeli officials trying to use gas as a tool to coerce Egypt into political positions. And it's funny, it's ironic, actually. I mean, I remember clearly 40 years ago, we were criticized by the Egyptian left and by the Islamists because we were selling, in accordance with the peace treaty, we were selling Egyptian oil, Sinai oil, to Israel. And then later on, we sold Egyptian gas to Israel. So it is funny that things would come around and this would be used against us. Anyhow, I'm sure it's going to be resolved because it's in the benefit of everyone. I think this economic cooperation is another fruit of the peace that exists between the two countries, and denying it would only serve those who work against this peace.
Thank you. Last thing I would like to ask you, if you would be willing to, is to approach the Israeli public directly. If I would ask you to provide, one short, clear message to the Israeli public today, what would it be?
I think peace is a priority. It's more important than the price of cheese or price of bread that usually you go to elections to decide on who can give you the best price of bread or the best price of cheese. I think in your next election, if you have any, my advice to you is to really vote on who's going to provide us, all of us in the Middle East, with the best opportunity for peace. I know it is difficult because average Israelis, we used to say average Israelis who were born after 1973, they are now more than 50 years. So they didn't get into a real war. Today, that's not true anymore. In the last 2 years, they have been in a real war. And believe me, it could be repeated. And believe me, the price would be higher, would be much higher, not only in terms of casualties and human souls that are going to be lost on both sides, but also in terms of the Israeli image in the eyes of the world. Not only the Arabs, the Muslims. No. I'm talking, I live now in the United States, and you can see the difference. You can see, believe me, those who are for peace, they don't want Israel to turn into another apartheid. Believe me, I mean, and I'm included. We don't want that, but it's going to happen. If peace is absent, and if these wars are going to continue, and they will continue if peace is not present, or at least the hope for peace, I'm afraid you will end up with an isolated Israel, and it might face the same fate that the apartheid regime faced. And let us hope to avoid that. And it should be clear in the minds of average Israelis. And I hope they can take it as coming from a friend.
Thank you, Ambassador Abderahman Salaheldin, a dear friend, a combatant for peace, always committed to do good. And I hope in the near future, we could continue our conversation in person. And I wish you a good health and a good time with your family in Cairo, in Los Angeles, wherever they are. This is the most important thing.
And maybe in Israel, I would be able to attend your conference in person when we have a peace treaty on the horizon.
From your mouth to our deeds, to our deeds.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abderahman. And all the best for you and your family. Thank you.
The same for you and your family.